The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Wednesday, February 12th. Chipping away at February nicely here. Hope everybody's got plans for Valentine's Day, Friday. We have plans. We're going to this restaurant in Puerto Rico, and every Valentine's Day they do a chocolate dinner. A chocolate dinner. So every course, 5 courses, has chocolate in it. It might not be, most of them are not sweet, and they use the chef uses every part of the chocolate bean, and it only seats 12 people. You sit around a bar and 12 people, and he cooks the food in front of you. And you can actually eat the chocolate beans. He has some chocolate beans there. You can eat the bean itself, which is always interesting. It's Puerto Rican chocolate and cacao that is grown in Puerto Rico. So that's what we are planning to do, going out with another couple. Should be a blast. We did it the last couple of years, and the dinners were amazing, really, really good. All right. What are we doing today? Yes, news. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about in news. We'll start with Ukraine. We'll talk about inflation, DOGE, some more DOGE, Iran, Gaza, a lot of stuff on repetition because, hey, everything's repeating itself, or the stories are evolving, but the same topics are evolving. We'll keep talking about that. Lawsuits against the government, against DOGE, how they're being resolved, what's going on, and the attitude of Musk and Trump with regard to those lawsuits. So we'll talk about all that. We'll start with Ukraine, and we'll go from there. Let's see. So that is on the program today. It's going to be a relatively short show. That is, I expect the show today to be, the show today will be less than 2 hours because I'm teaching a class at 5 p.m. Puerto Rican time, 4 p.m. East Coast time. So I have to be done by then. So it'll probably be an hour and a half class. So I've adjusted the fundraising target for the Super Chat to adjust for that. And finally, I want to remind you to ask questions in the Super Chat because that's how we get content for the show. I mean, that's you guys dominate the second half of the show by asking lots of good questions. We've already got Remo and we've got Michael already asking, and Tessa and Tessa and Kuzmik have both supported the show with, and Colleen have all supported the show with, excuse me, with stickers. Stickers, great way to support the show. All right, let's get to it. I think it's now official. As of, I don't know, half an hour ago, it's basically official that the United States is selling Ukraine out. Ukraine is finished. It really does look like the conclusion of the Ukraine-Russia war will be Russian victory, not because they won on the battlefield, not because they're winning on the battlefield, not because they will take over Ukraine in the battlefield, but because Trump is going to hand it to them on a silver platter, one way or the other. My prediction, 4 years from now, Ukraine will basically be a satellite country to Russia. Putin will have his puppet in running Ukraine. Zelensky will be out. There'll be a new president. That president will be a Putin puppet. And the whole war, Ukraine's amazingly brave and incredibly courageous defense of its own country for naught. Trump seemed to be moving in the direction of supporting Ukraine, sending, being tough on Putin, and supporting military assistance to the Ukrainians, but it really does look like that was just a head fake. He did even appoint his special envoy to Ukraine and Russia is a guy who's relatively on the Ukrainian side of things, pro-Ukraine, anti-Russian. But it does look like that in the last few hours, this guy has been completely sidelined and become irrelevant to what is going on. Just to give you some content around this. President Trump spoke earlier today with Putin. They had an amazing call, a fantastic call where Putin agreed with Trump that they need to find a common sense solution to the crisis. Putin actually used those terms because those are the terms Trump had used in his campaign, and he knows how to suck up to Trump. From the truth, post that the truth, right? It's kind of ironic that Trump has a truth network. From the post that Trump posted about his conversation with Putin, I would say, Putin dominated that conversation, and Trump is going to give him everything he wants. We'll get to why I think that and why I think that even more strongly in a minute. But then Trump picked up the phone, called Zelensky, and they had a fantastic conversation, according to Trump, a wonderful conversation. I'm sure Zelensky was very happy to find out about his surrender. And there will be, starting this weekend, I guess, I think Friday, they will begin meetings in Munich, in Germany, between, I guess, the three sides, but primarily between the Americans and the Russians, to resolve the issue of Ukraine. The people at the meeting will be Defense Secretary Hegseth, I think, and I had here a list of the people who were going to be there, Hegseth and Rubio and the director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, and the National Security Advisor, Michael Waltz. They will all be at this meeting in Munich. The one guy who will not be at the meeting with Munich, which is incredibly revealing, is Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, who is Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia. You think he'd be at the meeting? It was not mentioned as being at the meeting, and I think that's because he's being sidelined, given his hardline position against Russia and in favor of Ukraine. Now, why am I so negative about this meeting? Maybe Trump's going in and he's going to negotiate and he's going to get them and he's going to get the Russians to compromise and he's going to hand Ukraine a victory. I only now realized it's Munich. They're doing this in Munich. I mean, the symbolism is amazing. Let's hand the thug, dictator, authoritarian, empire-seeking Putin a victory in Munich. That's never happened before. Anyway, one of the reasons I'm so convinced that Trump has already sold out the Ukrainians is because, if you're going to negotiate, right? If you're going to negotiate, what typically, I don't know, maybe if you read the Art of the Deal, or maybe you guys know a little bit about negotiations, you start out with your most aggressive bid, right? You start out aggressive. You start out with a position of Russia, you have to evacuate all Ukrainian lands, and you start out with absolutely Ukraine is going to become a member of NATO. And then you compromise, right? Then you moderate and you compromise and you come up with, okay, you can keep Crimea and some of Donetsk, and maybe Ukraine becomes member of NATO 15 years from now, something, right? But that's not the American position, because Donald Trump is far too good of a negotiator to take that conventional approach. No. Secretary Hegseth, our defense secretary, is in Europe right now, and he, in a press conference earlier today, before Trump talked to Putin on the phone, said, one, it was unrealistic for Ukraine to expect to get all its land back. That was just unrealistic. We're not going to push for that. And two, Ukraine's never going to become a NATO member. Never going to become a NATO member. This is before the negotiations. So now the question is only, how much of what Putin wants is he going to get? 80%, 90%, or 100%? I mean, this from the administration run by the guy who wrote the Art of a Deal and is the greatest negotiator in human history, according to his fans. This is the guy who will have Putin eating out of his hand. I mean, Putin has Trump twisted around his finger in an astounding way, and which to some extent I don't really get. I don't really understand how he's managed to do that. But it's absolutely the case, unequivocally the case, that Putin just dominates Trump. He dominates Tucker. He dominates J.D. Vance. I mean, they're all sycophants of Putin. They all love Putin. They all think Putin's amazing, that Putin is really the savior of Western civilization. Certainly, I think that's J.D. Vance and Tucker's position. And, the Trump is playing right into Putin's hand. He's going to give him everything he wants. This is, an incredibly sad day for certainly for the Ukrainians, but for America. Basically, America is selling its allies. It's selling them out. It won't stand by them. It won't support them. It won't even negotiate on their behalf in any kind of strong way. The United States is basically surrendering to Russian aggression. This will not be the last time we will see Russian aggression. As a consequence, they will take their time, build up their military, try to get the industrial base going. China is looking at this very carefully, and it's noted Trump's threats tariffs on Taiwan. It's noted Trump's ambiguity about whether he defend Taiwan from a Chinese aggression. They will note that Trump is gifting Putin a big gift for that aggression. Pretty amazing. At the same time, Hegseth went to NATO today. I guess he was at NATO headquarters today, marched into NATO, and he said, NATO needs to become a lean, mean fighting machine. It needs to become this amazing, strong. Why? What for? Who are you going to fight? Who's the enemy? Who are you fighting against? I really don't know who the enemy is. Given, you obviously don't view Russia as an enemy. You don't view Russia as any concern. So what exactly do we need NATO for? Why don't these guys just advocate for leaving NATO and finished? Right. Here's Hegseth's exact words. This is before they talked to Putin, before they negotiated, before they went into negotiation. God, here's my hands. Just look at my hands. Here are my cards. Let's play poker. You can see, I'll show my cards, every hand. Let's see who wins in poker. The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome for a negotiated settlement. Even if you believe that, do you really think that is the right thing to say? Here's Defense Secretary Hegseth as he arrives at NATO. This is his post on Twitter. Our commitment is clear. NATO must be stronger, more lethal force, not a diplomatic club. Time for allies to meet the moment. And he's got this, cool photo of him marching into the NATO headquarters. Again, what's the purpose? So in this press conference, he said, no NATO membership, no return to pre-2014 borders, no U.S. troops in Ukraine, and no relying on the United States for majority of military funding. He said that in a press conference 2 days before he's supposed to start negotiating across the board from the Russians. Who do you think has the upper hand in that negotiation? Anyway, It's a done deal. It's over. The Ukrainians need I mean, if you live in Ukraine, you might think about leaving. And if you're European, if you're Poland, if you're the Baltic states, you might start thinking about what do you do if Russia attacks you, and you cannot rely on American help. So I think this is a good opportunity, actually, for NATO to kick the United States out, and NATO to become a European defense alliance, and build up their nuclear arsenal, build up their military, and position themselves against the Russians. But the reality is that America, at least under Trump, is going to stab its allies in the back and has no purpose for NATO, has no purpose for it. And, fine, leave NATO. Don't play these games. All right, that is Ukraine. I will say, as I've said before, I will say this because I don't know, some of you are new to the channel probably. I believe that the Ukraine war is a crucial war for Western civilization. I think Russia here represents reactionary, anti-Western civilization forces. It represents kind of an axis of evil. It is the aggressor. It is committed to, and I think really committed to, if it doesn't have the military power, but it is committed to dominating Europe. It is committed to being the power to whom Europe, looks to, whether it conquers Europe or just it dominates Europe. That is Putin's goal. That is the goal of many people in Russia, many of Russia's intellectuals. And it was important to stand up against Putin because it was important for Western civilization, or the remnants of it, or the little bit that's left of it, to stand up against a reactionary force, a force that wants to take us backwards, not forwards, away from the ideas of the West, away from the principles of the West, primarily principles of liberty and freedom and reason and rationality, towards faith, mysticism, and authoritarianism, and collectivism in spades. I think the collectivists on reason is winning, and Trump is accelerating the victory. These are the little things that I told you that were going to happen. There are many of them that make me so anti-Trump. He's pro-Putin. That makes me pretty anti-Trump, the fact that he's pro-Putin. All right. And again, wrong message to China, another reactionary force that would like to challenge the West for cultural, economic, and military domination. So not good. Not good. A very good day for authoritarians around the world. Not good for the forces of those of us who believe in freedom. Okay. On the economic front, very big shift here. On the economic front, important to note that that inflation. Whoops! Why is this not working? What's that? Inflation came in today hotter than expected. It was higher than expected. The January Consumer Price Index jumped 0.5% for the month, which is higher than the 0.3 that economists expected. It puts the annual inflation rate at about 3%, again, higher than what expected, and moving away from the Federal Reserve's goal of 2%. It is going to make it more difficult for the Federal Reserve, based on their own theory and their own way of thinking about this. It's going to make it much more difficult for them to cut interest rates, which puts them at a collision course with Trump, who is one of his campaign promises was to cut interest rates significantly. Core inflation, that is if you take out food and energy, core inflation rose at 0.4%. And for the last 12 months at 3.3%, again, significantly higher than where the Fed would like it to be. I'd also note that this is happening in an environment in which oil prices are going down. Oil prices, I guess a gallon was what, $71, $72? So oil is going down, and in spite of oil going down, other prices are going up. So we're still not over the inflationary bout of 2022. The deficit spending, the inability of Congress to propose any kind of bill that anybody believes would get spending under control. The fact that while DOGE is doing a lot, we'll talk about DOGE in a minute, it's not really challenging the big government programs that are going to be necessary to challenge in order to really cut spending. So, it shows that inflation expectations, people's expectations about inflation are high, and therefore they're already pricing it in. It also could be capturing the effect of people's anticipation about prices going up as a result of tariffs. Remember that people don't wait for tariffs in order to raise prices. People might raise prices on American goods in anticipation of the tariff coming in. Already yesterday, when the 25% tariff on steel was announced, Nucor was already raising prices on rebar. So what tariffs do is they give a green light to American producers to raise prices. As a consequence of the inflation numbers and the belief that the Fed will be restricted in how much it can lower interest rates this year, the 10-year Treasury bond, declined in price. That means yields, interest rates went up. So the 10-year rate has gone up to more than 4.65%. Of course, the 10-year Treasury yield is the most popular benchmark, I think, these days for long-term mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards. So that means you can expect mortgage rates to go up, auto loan rates to go up. Now, Trump has promised to cap credit card rates, and he might cap mortgage rates, and he might cap auto loan rates. Who knows what he'll do? Josh Hawley and Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders will certainly support him. All of that means that massive distortions and perversions in the economy if interest rates start getting capped like that throughout. But it means more expensive cost of living for Americans, higher payments on your mortgage if you have a variable rate mortgage, or if you're trying to buy a home right now and you're going out to get a mortgage. Same with a car, same with credit cards. Stocks went down, not as much as they did first thing in the morning, but they did go down. So we will see. They went down, then they started going up, but they're still all the major indices. Last time I checked, were down quite a bit. Remember, when interest rates go up, everything else held constant. Stocks, real estate, pretty much everything else should come down, right? Anything that produces cash flow, its valuation should come down. So interest rates go up, prices come down, is particularly 10-year. The 10-year probably affects stock prices more than any other interest rate. It'll be interesting now to see what Trump does in terms of two of his promises, as I mentioned, to the American people during the campaign. One, his promise to reduce the cost of living for Americans, which seems to be going up not only because of these inflation numbers, but also because of Trump's tariffs. It's going to raise the cost of living for many Americans. And second, right, his promise that interest rates will come down when interest rates are now look like they're increasing. So we'll see. Hard to tell. I'm not going to make a 4-year prediction on interest rates and cost of living, but there's at least you have to increase the odds that inflation is going to pick up here in the next few months, and the cost of living is going to increase significantly for Americans in the next few months. Hard to tell over a 4-year period, and I'm very bad at economic predictions. I'm not. Yeah. Don't invest based on my economic predictions. I don't even invest based on my economic predictions. All right, let's see. Just quickly on the Trump administration front, before we get to DOGE, it looks like really everybody that Trump has put up is going to be voted in by the Senate. So today, the Senate voted to make Tulsi Gabbard the head of all our intelligence agencies. So she will be the head of the agency that was created after 9/11 to coordinate the efforts of all the intelligence agencies. So in a sense, be the boss of the CIA, the NSA, and military intelligence, everything else, and coordinate everything. Not only is she deeply unqualified, not only are her views problematic with regard to American security. I mean, she is pretty pro-Russia. So, and it blamed the war in Ukraine on the West. So I guess it's not surprising that on the day she got nominated is the day that the United States officially sold out the Ukrainians. So she's perfect for the role as basically gut the American intelligence capabilities vis-a-vis her allies. So yeah, Tulsi Gabbard, completely incompetent. I don't think that's smart, and certainly not she's not America first, not in the true sense of what America first means. She's not pro-American enough to be the head of the intelligence agencies. I do expect that either this week or early next week, RFK will be confirmed as head of the Health and Human Services Department. I can't think of anybody who's anybody less qualified than him to take that position. It is truly horrific to see people who claim to be rational, claim to believe in markets, claim to be pro reason and science and health, support this real monster, this irrational leftist, I emphasize leftist, statist, anti-science guy, and he is going to have all the different, avenues of government involvement in healthcare in the United States. Nothing good can really come out of that, and again, it's sad to see, really, really sad to see that these. And then you've got Patel running the FBI. Pretty sure he'll get approved as well. Again, completely unqualified, other than he's a partisan and wants to use the FBI to clean up the left, to get rid of the left. I guess that's the only real criteria for many of these positions. Are you anti-woke enough, and will you do? Really, the criteria is: will you do what Trump tells you? Are you committed to Trump? That is really the only thing. Okay, let's see. It's just a breaking story saying that Trump is going to impose these reciprocal tariffs. Like if you put 5% tariffs on the U.S., we'll put 5% tariffs on you. If you put 50% tariffs on us, we'll put 50% tariffs on you. Right, that kind of tariff. So he's about to launch that, but he is weighing exemptions to the reciprocal tariffs on autos and pharma. So supposedly he told GOP lawmakers of his plan for these exemptions in a White House meeting last month, right? This is a source, basically Speaker Johnson just told Reuters. I don't get that. I don't understand it. I mean, this goes against all the principles of Trump economics. Why would you exempt autos and drugs from U.S. tariffs if they're paid for by foreigners and they make us super rich and powerful? I mean, that seems really, really weak. if you're going to make exemptions on tariffs, then that means we can't tax foreigners anymore, and we won't be quite as rich and powerful as we might have been. I mean, this is Trump. Trump, amazingly inconsistent about his own set of beliefs about tariff. Isn't that amazing? Maybe somebody whispered in his ear that maybe this doesn't make sense. All right. Let's see. Okay, let's talk about DOGE. So DOGE continues to kind of step into a variety of different government agencies, government programs. They into the Treasury database for government disbursements. It is DOGE is out there announcing on a regular basis a particular theme that they call corruption and fraud and waste. Now, I agree, everything they've identified that I've seen so far is something the government shouldn't do, along with like a million other things that they haven't identified that the government shouldn't do. But here's how they identify what they call fraud. Fraud is anything that the government does that promotes a leftist agenda. If you support anyone who's on the left, that's fraud. And so they're cutting a lot of, quote, fraud. They're cutting a lot of woke stuff. A lot of this waste and fraud that's being cut is cutting support for programs that are of the left, which is fine with me. I'm all for that. They also probably will find a lot of fraud. They probably will find a lot of the rest of it. But as we've said over and over and over again, unless you consider Medicare fraud or waste, maybe it is waste. But I don't think Trump considers that, unless you consider Social Security. Even though there is fraud in Medicare and there's fraud in Social Security, unless you're willing to actually make changes in the programs, in those programs, you just can't cut $2 trillion. So, look, at the end of the day, DOGE going in there and revealing all the crap that the U.S. government spends money on is amazing. I mean, even congressmen don't know this because they don't read the bills they sign off of. And nobody, once in a while, somebody goes through those bills and lets the American people know that this is how their money is being spent. But Elon Musk is doing it with big publicity and a big megaphone. And, this transparency into the complete and utter absurdness of the tens of billions, maybe even hundreds of billions of dollars that are being wasted, spent on ideas that are antagonistic to most Americans' belief, but basically spent on things that government shouldn't spend money on. Is good. There's no principle there, other than we hate the left. There's no principle there. There's no identification of what the government should spend money on versus what it shouldn't. There's no recognition of individual rights as the thing that government is instituted in order to protect. But there is an elevation of the idea that, the government shouldn't spend taxpayer money frivolously. And maybe that'll bring a little bit, an iota of sanity to some of the absurd, ridiculous programs that are out there. And maybe as a consequence, we'll actually get a little bit less government spending on some of these programs. I think what we'll ultimately get is more government spending on other things that are probably equally bad. But I think overall the revelations are probably good. If anybody buys into the idea that these are principled or these are earth-shattering or these are fundamental changes to American governance, that would be a mistake. But the transparency is a good thing. Getting them out there is probably a good thing. For example, I mean, Trump wrote an executive order now basically saying that all the departments in the federal government need to basically put together plans to shrink, to downsize, not in terms of the money they spend necessarily, but in terms of their personnel. They need to be able to do the same with less, which is great because they're all unbelievably inefficient. We know that. Now, will they become more efficient because they have fewer personnel? Probably not. But I'm cool with spending less money on people in the government. Is it okay for Trump to do this constitutionally? I don't see how it can be. Right? He's the executive in charge. And therefore, his job is to manage these departments and regulatory agencies. And if he thinks that they could be run more effectively with fewer personnel, Congress does not pass laws that say this number of people need to be employed in the department of whatever. So I see this as certainly within his scope, certainly within his responsibility, and basically, yeah, this is good. Put them all on notice. Now again, is there a principle guiding here? Is this going to be permanent in any kind of sense? Is there shrinking of the responsibilities of these departments? That is to be determined. To be determined. The idea is to reduce the size of government workforce, of the government's workforce, which will reduce government spending, maybe, through efficiency improvement and attrition. That is not hiring for people who are let go. Also, the voluntary resignations of, we might have, 60,000, maybe more government employees resigning voluntarily. All of that is going to move us towards a smaller government workforce, which is good. Now, this executive order also further institutionalized Musk's Department of Efficiency across the government. It gives Musk a lot more power, a lot more authority to go in and shrink personnel. So this is it's going to be interesting. The next few months are going to be super interesting in terms of what DOGE actually gets done, what actually happens. This bill that Congress is passing, which is a budget and a big tax bill, the mother of all bills, where Trump has thrown everything he wants into it. That's going to be really interesting to see what Republicans can do there. Not as much success as, even less success there than I think that Musk is having. I do think one thing Trump and Musk are going to be successful at is DEI, getting rid of DEI in the government. That's all good. Getting rid of funding DEI programs. That's all good. And I think that won't be in the budget, that the Republicans will pass a budget that doesn't include all those programs. So that'll be 100% constitutional. So it's going to be quite interesting. I think we'll know really how this is all going by the time the budget is passed, I'd say 3 to 6 months. And by the time DOGE has really had an impact, we'll know, is this making a dent in government spending? Is it making a dent in the deficit? Because look, the one way you could start reducing inflation expectations is if you reduce the deficit significantly. Let's see if Musk and Trump are capable of doing that. Right now, borrowing costs for the federal government is only going up. And as a consequence, it becomes more and more difficult as interest rates stay high to actually cut government spending. Trump needs low interest rates. It's kind of catch-22, right? He needs low interest rates in order to cut government spending because that's interest on debt, which is a huge, like, it's bigger than defense now. And he needs to cut spending in order to get lower interest rates. Chicken and egg. So he has to cut programs, has to cut real programs. And his tax cuts have to be revenue neutral. Otherwise, the market is going to interpret them all as increasing deficits and inflation expectations will go up. Anyway, we will see. This one thing I wanted, the lawsuits are interesting. So there are tons of lawsuits. We talked about that. I've got updated metrics here. There are 18 lawsuits about the federal workforce firing of people, shrinking, letting go of the certain administrators. There are 17 lawsuits with regard to immigration, many of those with regard to birthright citizenship. There's 7 lawsuits with regard to transgender stuff. There are 5 lawsuits about government funding and assistance. And then there's another 4 lawsuits that cover other stuff. So what is that? 35, over 50 lawsuits. Over 50 lawsuits, right? Now, I think it's going to be a mixed bag. I think that some lawsuits Trump is going to win. I think a lot of the lawsuits that have to do with executive power over government spending, I think Trump is going to win a lot of those. Not all of them, maybe, but a lot of them, I think he will win. I think the courts will approve it. We actually had a court already today approve it, so we'll get to that in a second. I think he will win some on immigration and lose some. He'll lose birthright, but he might win others. He'll probably win transgender. Funding and assistance, I don't know. So it's going to be a mixture. It's going to be a mixture. There are 4 lawsuits about the establishing of DOGE. I think he'll probably win that one. The lawsuits are going to be a mixed bag, but it's going to take time. And then, of course, there is this constitutional question: is will Trump adhere to the lawsuits? Now, over the weekend, J.D. Vance said, no, these judges are out of the Constitution, out of their depth, and the government should ignore them. Trump should ignore them. This is J.D. Vance, the vice president. The government should ignore these judges. These judges are activist judges. They're leftist judges with a political agenda, and they have no constitutional right to limit what Trump does. They are limiting the mandate that the people gave Trump. Now, somebody needs to talk to him about the Constitution, but that is J.D. Vance's position. Elon Musk took it a little further. Elon Musk came out and publicly called for the impeachment of federal judges that he accused of obstructing the will of the American people through their judicial decisions. This is after a court in Massachusetts blocked a policy change by the Trump administration regarding NIH grant overhead charges to universities. So you've got Musk and J.D. Vance basically calling for Trump to ignore what the judges say. Trump, on the other hand, a few hours ago, on an interview on TV, basically said no, he's going to let this play through the courts. He believes he will win in the courts, and he is not going to ignore the judge's ruling. So that's interesting. Trump being more responsible and more committed to the Constitution, surprisingly, than either J.D. Vance or, well, I'm not surprised about J.D. Vance, but more even than he's going to, more than Musk, which is surprising, right? More than Musk. So that's a good thing from Trump. They said something positive about Trump. And then, also earlier today, a federal judge, and this kind of shows you a legal system works. You just gotta let it play out, and it's gonna play out in a variety of different ways. It takes time, but it plays out. And I don't know what the ruling at the end of the day is going to be by the Supreme Court, but that's what we have. So here, for example, a federal judge has ruled that President Trump does, in fact, have constitutional authority to freeze or limit certain federal funding. And therefore, he is overruling, or at least it doesn't seem clear that the administration has to follow the district court. And now, because there is a conflict between a federal judge and a district court judge, it's more likely to go to appeal to one of the appellate courts, and is much more likely to land up pretty quickly at the Supreme Court. So all these cases are going to land up in the Supreme Court, and they're going to make decisions, and I don't know how they're going to decide. It is going to be interesting, but that is the process. That's the process that exists today, and probably the right process for these kind of things. And even if you're on the side of let's shrink government and let's shrink government quickly, let's do it according to the principles of the rule of law. Rule of law. All right. What else did we want to talk about? Quickly on Iran, a few things about Iran. One is, as I've said, while Trump is threatening Iran with bombing them, he is pushing negotiations, and the Iranians are paying attention, and they're open to negotiations, although they say they don't want to negotiate under the threat of force. But they're clearly open to negotiating. And a big reason that Iran is open to negotiating is that their economy is just on the verge of collapse. I mean, their economy is a disaster. The currency, the Iranian currency is its lowest value I think it's ever been as compared to the American dollar, which means that Iranians cannot import anything. It's too expensive. Once they convert it to dollars, they can't afford it. Which means there's very little available for Iranians to buy. So it's now the Iranian rial is now 892,500 rial to the dollar in the black market. Yeah. So it keeps getting worse, and it keeps plummeting. In addition to that, the Iranian capital, Tehran, and other parts of Iran have been experiencing blackouts. They can't keep the lights on. There's a real energy crisis. Schools and government offices are closed tomorrow, maybe today. I guess this was, when was this post? This is yesterday, so today. Schools and government offices are closed in provinces marked orange, which is most of Iran, as part of government's energy saving plans. Of course, this is all a consequence of the incompetence and corruption of the regime, and of course, the sanctions. It's very, very difficult for them to import or export anything. And generally, the public, I mean, they might be angry about women and not being able to walk around without head covering. But what will really get the Iranian population upset is when they just can't afford to live, when their standard of living declines dramatically, which it is, and there are calls on government officials to resign. There are calls for Khamenei to start negotiating with the Americans to find a way to lift the sanctions. And I have no doubt that Khamenei, I mean, I have little doubt, not no doubt because these are irrational players, but a little doubt that they will go to the negotiating table and they will cut some kind of deal with Trump. Trump called it a victory. The Iranians will revive their economy and then proceed to develop their nuclear weapons that they want. Ultimately, the lesson that they learned from their confrontation with Israel is that they need nuclear weapons. Indeed, the lesson they learned from the confrontation now with Trump is that they need nuclear weapons, and they will pursue those. They just might delay so that they can recover economically. This is a great time to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. It's a great time to weaken the Iranian state significantly. It would be a great time to plunge Iran into darkness by taking out their power plants. It would be a great time to weaken the Iranian Revolutionary Guard by taking out their bases and their personnel, all from the air, and thus unleashing the Iranian people on their own regime to replace. But that is not the tack that either Israel or the United States are likely to take. So sad, but I expect a negotiated deal with Iran in the next few months. All right. Final topic, Gaza. We're back to Gaza. So, Trump has threatened all hell on Hamas if all the hostages are not released by Saturday. Israel reframed that threat as if Hamas does not release all 7 remaining hostages as part of the first round of the deal. Most of those 7 would be bodies. Or is it 9? Maybe it's 9. Then by noon on Saturday, Israel will view the ceasefire as over and will launch a renewed attack on Hamas. Israel is already calling reserve troops back. They have placed all of their military personnel on high alert. They've canceled vacations and canceled weekend passes. And hard to tell exactly how fast Israel will move. According to past precedents, they will move slowly. They've also said this time, we're going to be tough. This time, we're really going to go after you. This time, we're not going to supply you with food and water and electricity. I'll believe it when I see it. Anyway, it's going to be, this weekend will be very interesting. It's hard to imagine Hamas capitulating, but they might. But then if they don't capitulate, is Israel really ready to do what is necessary? And will Trump really support Israel if Israel unleashes hell on Gaza, which is what it should do, what it should have done a year and 4 months ago? Maybe they've learned a lesson, and maybe they're ready to actually do it. All right. That is the news for February 12th, Wednesday. We will have a regular show tomorrow and on Friday. And then there'll be I'll do a positive show on Saturday. Have to think of a topic, but we'll do something on Saturday. I will include, either on tomorrow or Friday, a lengthier, in-depth dive into a topic in addition to the news. So expect Thursday and Friday, both shows, expect those to be 3-hour shows or bordering on 3 hours. Thank you to all the super chatters. We're doing quite well. We're about $45 short of our 1 hour goal. So, and we've still got 7 minutes. So maybe we can close that gap in the next 7 minutes as we wrap up here. 2 $20 questions will get us a long way there. Let's see, what else did I want to cover before that? Yeah, just remind you to ask questions and to use the sticker feature to support the show. Also, I want to remind you all that you can become members by clicking the membership button under there, $5 a month or something like that. And then you can watch other members-only shows. There are a bunch of cool members-only shows available, including a really interesting discussion with John Barber about health and fitness and preventive medicine, kind of medicine 3.0. So you might want to check that out from the weekend by becoming a member. Or if you are feeling generous right now, you can gift people membership. You can make them members without, as a gift. Also, I want to remind everybody that we crossed the 39,000 mark in terms of subscribers, and now we are shooting for 40,000. So we've got 10,000 to go, just under 10,000 to go. To help with that, please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Also, please share content, short videos, all kinds of videos, and of course the long live videos. Just share. Get the word out there, and encourage people to become subscribers to Yaron Brook Show, so that we can make it to the $50,000 subscriber level, which is going to be important for I think YouTube. Of course, the real biggie is 100,000, so we're shooting for that. And finally, Patreon, or you can also use a PayPal. But Patreon is great. It's easier for you. It's easier for me. Please consider becoming a monthly supporter on Patreon. Those of you who do not support the show yet, you got all kinds of perks. You can check them out on Patreon. But also, it's just a way for you to express your value for value. And even if primarily for those who don't make it live to the show, it's a great way to show your support. You're not doing a super chat. You're not doing a sticker. Do a monthly contribution. Of course, those of you who do stickers and super chats are encouraged to do a monthly contribution as well. That really helps. Really helps fund this show, make this show possible. We are a listener-supported show. The show is basically made possible because of you, all of you out there. All right, we made the $250 for the first hour with 3 minutes to spare. Thank you, Noel, for coming in with $50. And we'll start with Noel's question. He says, seems like Trump's highest value is power over other people. Yes, I think it's a mixture of power and narcissism, power and wanting to be liked, or at least wanting to be liked by a certain segment of the population, wanting to be liked by certain people. He loves, he wants to be admired by other people who desire power, like Putin and Xi. He wants to be thought of, respected. He wants people to stand up when he walks into a room. He wants people to say, yes, sir, and jump at his command. He loves that power. He loves that, what that expresses in terms of what it says about their relationship to him. They will do what he says. He is the focal point of their attention. He loves attention. He loves being on the news every single day, all day, even on the Yaron Brook Show. It's Trump. So, yeah, he loves power over other people. There's no question about that. And he wants to be universally respected, loved. I don't know what the right term would be. He wants to be liked. He wants people to like him. He really does. Loves attention. Absolutely. All right, Remo, where does the concept of self-sacrifice come from in a lot of Asian countries? I think it already predates Christian influence in those countries. Yeah, look, the idea of self-sacrifice and really the idea of altruism predates Christianity. Christianity solidifies it, generalizes it, universalizes it, and places an entire ideology on its basis. I mean, there's Christ on the cross sacrificing, self-sacrificing for you. But yes, most tribal societies inculcate the idea of self-sacrifice for the tribe. The witch doctor and the Attila, the head, the chief of the tribe, constantly conspire, explicitly or implicitly, to inculcate a culture of self-sacrifice, because a culture of self-sacrifice is a culture that can be controlled. It is a culture that where you don't have self-interested individualist thinking for themselves. It's a culture that is now dependent on the tribal leader and the witch doctor for everything. So the rejection of individualism, the elevation of collectivism, and with that, the idea of sacrifice for the greater good, sacrifice for the community, sacrifice for the tribe, that has been around, I think, since human beings have been around, since the beginning of, since, I guess, the tribal leader and the witch doctor got together and figured this out. Ayn Rand has an excellent essay on all this called For the New Intellectual, where she talks about kind of the history of Attila and the witch doctor, the intellectual and the power luster. And I just thought of this. One of the things that makes Trump, this administration, so horrible is that Trump has managed to get some of the most productive people in the country to work for his cause, to work on behalf of his power lust. And that is, so the businessman now is not just sanctioning his own destruction, but fully cooperating and coordinating and making it more effective. You remember John Galt is being tortured and he's offered the position of economic dictator to fix the economy. And the torturing will stop and he can control the economy, he can bring laissez-faire. And he says, absolutely not, I will not work for you. And yet, not John Galtz, but the businessmen of today are all working with Trump. It's a little scary. Tessa, $20. Thank you, Tessa. Really appreciate that. Let's see what other stickers we got. Mike, thank you. Eyal, thank you. John, thank you. Another John, thank you. 2 Johns. Alex, thank you. And Silvanos. And Colleen. And Kusmik. And Tessa. Thank you all for the stickers. Really, really appreciate it. Michael, we are marching towards Nazism at pretty remarkable speeds. Christianity is becoming more acceptable among younger generations. Open racism is becoming more acceptable. Nationalism, trade wars, conspiracy theories, etc. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're marching toward Nazism necessarily, but towards fascism, towards what Dr. Peikoff predicted in Ominous Parallels and Dim. We seem to be on that path. There seem to be fewer and fewer voices speaking out for individual liberty, for separation of powers, for constitutional government. All of that, Trump is going to erode. We'll see what the Supreme Court does if it supports that erosion. We really do seem to be heading towards, at a much faster rate than I would have predicted, towards authoritarianism in America. No matter which political party ultimately puts it into place, we're marching towards it. And what's going on with Trump and DOGE is creating precedents and that will be used in the future by the even more authoritarian figures. And J.D. Vance, who's vice president and therefore the leading candidate to be president in 4 years, is even more radical on pretty much every one of these points than Trump is. It's J.D. Vance saying, ignore the courts. It's J.D. Vance that really was pushing this line of Ukrainian defeat, of succumbing to the Russians. So we will see. We will see. It's not good that J.D. Vance is the leader for the 2028 election. Stringer Bell, $20. Thank you, Stringer Bell. Really appreciate the sticker. Michael seems to go from extreme pessimism to extreme optimism. We can't lose. It looks like we're losing very quickly. But yeah, that's the world in which we live. You look around and you see the good things and the positive things and the advancement of objectivism and the influence, and you see, technology and all of that, and you go, oh yeah, we can't lose. And then you look at what's going on in Washington. You look at the mindlessness of so many in the American people, and you look at what is happening politically and culturally, and you go, God, we just can't win. There's no way to win. It's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster. Arum, will you listen to and comment on the song Window Wicked by Af Twix for $20? I love that song. Unfortunately, I have a rate for songs, and if I give it to you for $20, I feel like I'm not fair for the people who put up $100 for this song, so we need another $80 of room for me to get there. Augustinus Mencken, Yaron, long time no see. Here's $20. Thank you, Augustinus. I really appreciate the support. All right, got a bunch more questions. Let's go through these. Clark, a society with great income inequality may have no poor people, and a society with no income inequality may have nothing but poor people. Yes, I would argue that all societies with no inequality are poor societies. Poor societies. So, and that a truly free society would be a society where poverty was basically eliminated, and yet there would be vast inequality. I think that's right. But I'll just change what you wrote to all societies with no income inequality, everybody's poor. Savannah says, if we are marching towards authoritarianism here in the United States, would it be possible to design a party like that that functions as a Trojan horse for capitalism? What do you mean by like that? Oh, that will be authoritarian? I don't see how. I really don't see how. Authoritarianism, it goes hand in hand with statism. It's where they get their power from. And to try to deceive the American people, no, I'm an authoritarian. Really, I'm a capitalist. I just don't see how you do that. I just don't see how you can pull that off. And I'm not sure what the end result would be. You'd be thrown out of power when you achieved it because you would be violating everything you promised people you would do. All right, Arum, member for 3 months. That's great. Thank you, Arum, for being a member. Liam, congratulations on reaching 39,000. Once you hit 50K subs, or maybe for your 61st birthday, we could do a YBS show meetup in Austin or Las Vegas. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Certainly if I reach 50,000, we can do that. Maybe for my 65th birthday, if you guys want to celebrate it with me, we could do something like that. That sounds good. What is Trump BATNA? I don't know. I don't know. What's BATNA? What's BATNA? I don't know what that means. And then he says, we don't know. This is capitalist spy. Not sure what that means. Enric, can Europe organize to support Ukraine for succeeding in liberating its territory? Probably not. Probably not. For a number of reasons. One is just Europe is stagnating. Germany's in a recession. Where are they going to get the money? Where are they going to get the wealth from? Second, you know, are they really going to defy Trump? How much are they willing to defy Trump? At what cost? And then, of course, Europe is seeing a significant rise in right-wing parties and even some left-wing parties that support Russia. Like one of the things about AfD in Germany is that they're very, very, very pro-Putin. So to what extent do you think the mainstream parties would defy a significant vote for AfD or defy a significant minority within a country and Trump in order to support Ukraine and spend more money, which they don't have? I just don't see how Europe could do it. Apollo Zeus says, West is best. Yes, it is, if we understand what West is. We'll talk a lot more about what the West is. Talk about West, not West. West Stewart, thank you. $50, really appreciate that. Cutting the gap for what we need for the second hour significantly. So thank you, Wes. Really appreciate it. Oyvind, it is now enough to be against something, i.e. tearing down. People are lacking something to stand for. I think it is a major reason for the revival of faith. Also, are you coming to Trondheim? I agree with you completely. Faith is on the rise. I'll talk about that either Thursday or Friday. There's a huge increase in interest in faith, in religion, in Silicon Valley. We'll talk about that. A whole movement around Christianity in Silicon Valley, of all places. And I think a lot of it is there's nothing positive they've not identified anything positive to stand by. And so they're reverting to old, to what's always been around, to familiar, to common, which is religion. I am not coming to Trondheim. Trondheim canceled me. I was literally canceled by the students by the organization in Trondheim. So I was invited to come and give participate in a debate on power, political power, economic power, other sorts of power. In Trondheim. And it was at a student festival, the largest in the world, supposedly, student festival. So hundreds, thousands of participants at this talk I was going to give, or panel, or a debate I was going to participate in. And the program committee approved it, and the guy running the debates approved it, and everything was approved. And then it went to the board of directors. And the board of directors said, he's too controversial in Israel. And these guys said, but he's not even talking about Israel. And they said, doesn't matter. He's too controversial in Israel. We can't have somebody with his views on Israel speaking to students here in Trondheim. So I was officially canceled. Oyvind, so there you go. I was planning, I had a whole plan. I hadn't bought airplanes because they hadn't confirmed finally, but I built a trip around it, was planning to go. It was going to happen in March. I had to change my plans, do everything a little differently. But the plan was they were going to pay me a significant amount of money for me. And they canceled me. So cancel culture is still alive and well in Norway for supporting Israel, for my views on Israel, which are considered beyond the pale. Gail, are all government employees unionized? Not all of them. I think certain Defense Department and intelligence agencies are not unionized. But I think most of them, outside defense, are unionized. Matt, how do you deal with the frustration of spending 20 plus years accurately predicting the future with so few actual listeners, one mind at a time? Yeah, I mean, what can I do? What can I do? The reality is, this is the reality. This is the world. And, it's not metaphysical, but it's damn close to being metaphysical. I do my best. I do what I can. It's frustrating, but you have to be able to look beyond that and see the progress you are making, and respect the people whose mind is being changed, the one mind at a time people, and focus on that. It is what it is now. We're sliding down this path, and I know where it leads, and a lot of us know where it leads, and yet there's very little we can do to stop it. Very frustrating. Arum, thoughts on going back to school for 10 years to get a STEM PhD and change career? I already have an unrelated career, and I'm not particularly young. Well, I mean, if that's what you want to do, then you should do it, right? You should analyze your options, think it really through. What are your actual values? What is most important to you? And do it. If, going to school and getting into STEM and is if that's your passion, if that's what you want to do, and it's, then yeah, you should do it. Now you have to think about financially, and do you have a family, and do you support kids and everything else, and you have to take everything into account. But once you take everything into account, at the end of the day, you got to do what you think will benefit your life the most. I'm all for making radical changes in life, changing careers midstream, if you find something better, if something else is more interesting to you. It's your life. It's your life. Only live once. You can't redo. No second tries. Make the most of every minute. If making the most of every minute means going back to school, go back to school. Friend Hopper, 39,000 subs. Have a contribution to celebrate. Thank you, Friend Hopper. Appreciate that. Esoteric Dichotomy. Hey, Yaron. Have you done arts and crafts, painting, sculpture, pottery, and the like? Have you ever thought of writing fiction? I love creative projects. No, I haven't, and I won't, and I will never do it. I have no talent, no skill, no interest, nothing. Nada. Can't do it. I enjoy it. I love being a spectator. I'm not interested in crafts. I have no desire to do pottery. I can't sculpt if my life depended on it. I can't draw anything. I once took a drawing class that I got it decent. But then I watched my wife draw, and she's amazing. So it's just, I'm not interested. If I'm not going to be good at something, why do it? And I'm not going to be good at any of those things. And I'm not that interested in them as a doer rather than a spectator. Now, that doesn't mean anything about you. Your life is yours, not mine. So if you love creative projects, go for it. Do them. I love it. Esoteric Dichotomy, one fictional character you would like to meet. Dagny Taggart. Love to meet Dagny Taggart. She'd be amazing. From Atlas Shrugged, for those of you who don't know. Is capitalism an economic system or political system or something else? It's fundamentally a political, social system. It certainly has vast implications to economics, so it's all of the above. It's a political system, economic system, social system. It's a system in which the government's sole responsibility is the protection of individual rights, primarily property rights. It's a system in which all property is owned privately. And it's a system in which there's a complete separation of state from economics. That's what capitalism is. That's certainly political, it's social, and it's economic. Soup Cask, this all stems from unitary executive theory. Yeah, the idea that the executive can do what he wants. He is the man. I didn't say John Galt. You see? I did not do what Soupy Cask expected. Sometimes I'm unpredictable. All right, everybody. Thank you again to all the super chatters. Really, really, really appreciate it. I told you today would be a slightly shorter show, and it is. Thank you to all the super chatters. I really appreciate the support. Thank you to our sponsors, the Ironman Institute and Alex Epstein. I know I didn't give them a full shout out today. I'll make that up to them tomorrow. Thanks to all the participants. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And don't forget to go to Patreon and become a monthly supporter of the show. Because remember, value for value, win-win, is the best way to live in a social context. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Bye. See you tomorrow.